Dr. Eggman has returned with the mission of finding the Master Emerald, and now Sonic must use his Supreme Evolution to defeat one of his greatest enemies. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Sonic 2, from 2022. After spending 243 days alone on the Mushroom Planet, Dr. Eggman, also known as Robotnik, finally manages to finish creating his new machine that will take him back home. However, when he turns it on, he realizes that his plans haven't gone as planned, as a huge energy explosion occurs. A few hours later, a portal opens and the doctor, who was passed out, is found by a group of soldiers. When one of those men approaches to steal Sonic's thorn, Eggman suddenly wakes up and activates his traps to eliminate the invaders. After defeating them all, the villain bids farewell to the Mushroom Planet and runs towards the portal. However, just as he's about to go through it, he comes across Knuckles. Seeing the blue thorn, the creature asks where Robotnik found it and he says he will guide the animal to a planet called Earth. That night in Seattle, a group of bank robbers are on the run from the police after carrying out their latest heist. When he sees the group trying to escape, Sonic prepares to take action and runs to the truck. After knocking out the driver, the blue hedgehog takes control of the vehicle and maneuvers to stop the rest of the criminals in the back of the truck. In doing so, all the money that was stored in the vehicle begins to spill out onto the streets and Sonic realizes that there is a civilian trapped in the back of the vehicle. Along with it are numerous bombs that suddenly ignite and are about to explode. At that moment, Sonic tries to stop the vehicle, but discovers that the brakes aren't working. So the only option is to throw the bombs in the back of a garbage truck, because that way no one will be hurt by the explosion. Seeing that his vehicle is about to collide with an ice cream truck, Sonic grabs a screwdriver and uses his super speed to dismantle the car. In this way, he manages to avoid the collision and helps the police catch the bandits. The next morning, after performing yet another heroic deed, the hedgehog returns to the small town of Green Hills and goes home to take a nap in his room. However, Ozzy and Maddie show up to interrupt his nap and the woman reminds him that Sonic has a fishing trip scheduled with Tom. During the boat trip, Sonic falls asleep and falls into the water. But he can't swim, so he gets desperate and enlists Tom's help to get back into the boat. The man then reveals that he went to Sonic's room the night before and didn't find him there. At that point, he realized that the hedgehog had sneaked out once again to play at being a superhero and says that he can't go on doing that. As well as running the risk of having his identity exposed, Sonic always leaves trails of chaos wherever he goes and puts people's lives in danger. When he hears this, the hedgehog starts to feel bad, as his big dream has always been to be a superhero. But Tom tells him that he is still too young and needs to wait for the right time to start using his powers to save the world. That weekend, Maddie and Tom take a vacation to Hawaii to attend Rachel's wedding. However, instead of taking a plane to get there, the couple enlists Sonic's help to create an interdimensional portal that will send them straight to their destination. After saying goodbye, the hedgehog hands Tom a ring and says that it can be used to take them back home. For the first time, Sonic will be home alone for 48 hours and decides to use this time to get up to all the mischief he's always dreamed of. That afternoon, Tails arrives in the woods through a portal, having used a tracker to find Sonic's location. At dusk, while the hedgehog is choosing a movie to watch with Ozzy, all the lights in the house go out and they hear a frightening noise coming from outside. Slowly, Sonic approaches the door and sees the handle being destroyed. When the door opens, he sees Eggman and says that the villain has made a big mistake by going there. In an attempt to provoke him, Robotnik says that he will make the hedgehog's entire family suffer and, upon hearing this, Sonic becomes furious. Then, as the blue hedgehog prepares to attack, Knuckles appears and punches his opponent. After being hit for the second time, Sonic decides to roll into his opponent at high speed, but Knuckles manages to stop him with his fists. He then captures the hedgehog and claims that he is there to do what his ancestors failed to do: restore the power that was stolen from his tribe, the Echidnas. Just as Sonic was about to be eliminated, a police car approaches and runs over Knuckles. Soon after, Tails appears and orders the hedgehog into the vehicle so they can get out of there. Furious, the Echidna decides to chase after them and, during their escape, Tails takes the opportunity to introduce himself. The fox says it's an honor to finally meet the blue hedgehog and reveals that Knuckles is the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy. According to Tails, his mission is to take possession of the Master Emerald and the Echidna is convinced that Sonic is the key to finding it. After almost being crushed by a truck, the pair believe they have managed to lose their enemy, but Knuckles is still after them and manages to catch up with the car. In an attempt to get rid of it, Tails throws the vehicle off the cliff and, during the fall, the fox uses its tails to fly. After saving Sonic, Tails returns to the top and Knuckles also manages to get out of the vehicle before it explodes. Seeing his targets escape, Robotnik decides to recruit a new ally for his team and gets in touch with Agent Stone, who is overjoyed to discover that his master is back. Immediately, he sends a spaceship to meet Dr. Eggman and, when it arrives on Earth, it turns into a ship, which unleashes countless machines at Robotnik's service. When he sees Knuckles about to reach the top, the villain decides to make a new deal with him and promises to help the Echidna find the Master Emerald as long as he uses it to destroy the Hedgehog. That night, after escaping elimination, Sonic takes Tails to Wade's house and asks for the man's help to find out why Knuckles believes he is the key to finding the emerald. While checking the drawings on the map he got from his late friend, Sonic comes across a hologram of Garalonga, which was created to convey a message to him. According to the owl, the Master Emerald is hidden on Earth and has the power to turn thoughts into reality. So Sonic must protect that jewel, because if it falls into the wrong hands, the whole universe will be in danger. After receiving Garalonga's message, the Hedgehog picks up the map and realizes that he will have to go to Siberia to find the compass that will lead him to the emerald. When they get there, Sonic and Tails are surprised by a snowstorm, so they decide to take shelter in the first wooden tent they find along the way and discover that the place is a restaurant. While they wait for their orders, Tails reveals that he has gone to Earth to warn Sonic that Robotnik has escaped from his exile and is after him. Minutes later, when the dishes arrive at the table, Tails claims that his order was wrong and both he and Sonic end up being unmasked by the other customers. Upon realizing that these creatures are not human, the group decides to throw the monsters into the fire, but change their minds when the fox suggests a new way of resolving the conflict, according to Siberian customs. Immediately, the customers move their tables aside so that the dance contest can take place. When he realizes he's in front of professional dancers, Sonic asks Tails to accompany him and the fox creates countless clones to infect all the customers with his performance. In this way, the pair manage to win the contest and make friends with the restaurant's customers. Hours later, when everyone has left, they decide to spend the night in the establishment to rest and continue their mission the next morning. At dawn, the pair flies over the snowy mountains of Siberia and finds the cave described on the map. After entering, they come across a gigantic gate and Tails translates what is written on it. According to the scriptures, many ages ago, a group of fearless warriors, known as Echidnas, fused the 7 Chaos Emeralds to create the most unbeatable weapon of all time, the Master Emerald. With it, a single warrior can defeat entire armies. However, believing that no one should possess such power, a group of owls banded together to take the emerald and swore to protect it to ensure that it never fell into the wrong hands. When he goes through the gate, Sonic comes across a gigantic statue and changes the sequence of symbols to activate the owl mechanism. In this way, the Hedgehog manages to get the compass, but soon discovers that he has been followed by Eggman, who sends his robots to surround them. Robotnik then appears in his flying convertible and sends a missile to eliminate his opponent. However, Sonic manages to react in time and redirects the missile towards Knuckles. Just then, the statue is destroyed and the cave begins to collapse. Sonic and Tails seize the opportunity to escape. In an attempt to lose the robots, the Hedgehog and the fox get separated. While skiing down the snowy mountain, Sonic throws snowballs at the robots, causing them to blow each other up. Suddenly, Knuckles appears to steal the compass and strikes his opponent while they are slipping in the snow. At this point, Sonic is almost knocked off a cliff and ends up dropping his rings. When he realizes he's trapped, the Hedgehog decides to give the compass to Tails and asks him to run far away. However, Robotnik appears just in time and manages to grab the artifact. He then attacks Tails with his missiles and leaves. When he sees his friend lying unconscious, Sonic rushes to his aid and Knuckles leaves with Dr. Eggman. Seeing the Hedgehog's attitude, Knuckles is surprised, as he didn't expect him to choose helping the fox over retrieving the compass. Minutes later, a huge amount of snow begins to fall from the mountains and Sonic grabs Tails on his lap to try and escape the avalanche. Having lost all his rings, Sonic decides to call Tom and asks him to use his ring to save him. The problem is that Tom and Maddie are in the middle of Rachel's wedding ceremony and, when the portal opens, the whole party is destroyed by a huge amount of snow. While trying to wake up Tails, Sonic is captured by a power grid and Rachel discovers that both Randall and all the guests he called to the wedding are federal agents. When she discovers that her fiancé set up that fake wedding just to capture the Hedgehog, Rachel is furious and Tom attacks the agents who capture Sonic and Tails. However, Randall manages to immobilize him and takes him to his room while Maddie tries to understand what's going on. According to Commander Walters, after the events that took place in San Francisco, the FBI created a global task force to protect the planet from alien threats. Just then, Maddie says that Robotnik is back and the commander has made a big mistake by arresting the only people who can stop him. When Walters leaves, Maddie and Rachel team up to break into the hotel and use an anti-gravity device to send one of the agents into space. In this way, they manage to get into the building and Maddie goes off in search of Tom while Rachel goes after her fiancé in search of revenge for having been tricked. Meanwhile, Maddie breaks into the room where Tom and Sonic are being held and manages to free them. What the group can't imagine is that, at this point, Robotnik and Knuckles have just found the true location of the Master Emerald. Suddenly, Sonic sees a huge beam of light coming out of the ocean and realizes that Robotnik has found the jewel. Determined to protect his friends and make sure that none of them get hurt, Sonic decides to go and meet Dr. Eggman alone. At this point, Tails wakes up and tries to follow him, but he's too weak to fly and says that the hedgehog needs help, because without it he won't be able to stop Knuckles. Immediately, Tom goes after Commander Walters and asks if he will help them stop Robotnik from destroying the planet. Meanwhile, in Green Hills, Wade takes a coffee break and realizes that his favorite coffee shop is closed. Curious to know why, he decides to snoop through the window and finds Stone working on Dr. Eggman's plans. When he discovers that the owner of the coffee shop is actually an ally of the supervillain who almost destroyed the Earth, the policeman decides to take action and arrest him. To get to the place where the streak of light is coming from, Sonic has to cross the ocean and, even though he's afraid of drowning, he runs at high speed above water, but ends up being hit by a huge wave. Luckily, after fainting, the hedgehog is carried to shore by the current and is surprised to discover that the Master Emerald has been hidden in an underwater temple. At this point, Robotnik and Knuckles are trying to get past the various traps that have been planted in that labyrinth to protect the jewel and, just barely, they manage to get halfway through unscathed. After entering the temple, Sonic soon realizes that the place is full of all kinds of traps, so he decides to use his speed to survive them all. When he finally reaches his final destination, Dr. Eggman comes across the Master Emerald and decides to eliminate Knuckles in order to get the jewel. However, before Robotnik had a chance to eliminate his ally, Sonic appeared and destroyed the ceiling to reach the main hall. At that moment, the hedgehog runs to grab the emerald before his enemies can get it, but Knuckles chases after him and manages to catch up. During the duel, Sonic ends up being hit and thrown into a waterfall. After defeating his opponent, the echidna climbs the stairs to get the emerald, but Sonic returns to continue the battle and uses his spiky body to bury his opponent in the ground. However, Knuckles soon manages to recover from the attack and tries to hit Sonic with his punches, but the hedgehog quickly dodges them all. While the two aliens fight, Robotnik takes the opportunity to steal the emerald. When he realizes that his partner is breaking the agreement they made, Knuckles is furious because he feels cheated by someone he thought was his friend. After mocking the echidna's naivety, Dr. Eggman completes his robbery and flees with the emerald. When the jewel is removed, the temple begins to collapse and is submerged by seawater. While Sonic tries to find a way out, he realizes that Knuckles has been buried by the rubble and decides to dive in to save him. Although he can't swim, the blue hedgehog uses a rock to get to the bottom and helps his opponent free himself. Immediately, the alien swims towards the surface to breathe, but Sonic can't keep up and ends up drowning. Then, when he realizes that the hedgehog can't swim, Knuckles comes back for him and the two of them manage to reach the beach together. When asked why he risked his life to save his enemy, Sonic says that's what a superhero does and reveals that his biggest goal is to dedicate his life to helping people. At that moment, Tails appears to rescue his friend and Sonic asks Knuckles for help in recovering the emerald, as they will have a better chance of succeeding in this mission if they work together. While Wade is trying to interrogate Agent Stone, Dr. Eggman appears and frees his ally. After stealing the jewel, Robotnik starts acting strangely and, when he sees Commander Walter and his army approaching, the villain prepares to confront them. Without making any effort, Dr. Eggman destroys a battle tank and then creates a hurricane to destroy all the agent's vehicles. At that moment, a train is passing nearby, so it ends up being dragged off the tracks and sucked into the cyclone. Seeing that apocalyptic scene, Maddie and Tom soon realize that Robotnik is dismantling everything around him to build something even bigger. Suddenly, Sonic and his team use a portal to teleport to Green Hills and encounter the giant robot built by Eggman. In an attempt to stop his enemy from destroying the city, the hedgehog tries to get his attention and the plane he's on ends up being bombed by hundreds of missiles. Luckily, Tails manages to dodge the attack and the missiles explode in the mountains, far away from the townspeople. Relieved to have made it out unscathed, Sonic gets distracted and ends up being hit by one last missile. Meanwhile, Knuckles runs towards the traitor and hits the robot's hand with a punch. At that moment, Tails approaches and starts shooting at the giant, but his aircraft ends up being crushed and he has to use his tails to fly away before suffering a fatal crash. The battle seemed to have been won when Sonic appeared riding the missile that had hit him and sent it back to Robotnik. Realizing that their best attacks weren't enough to defeat Dr. Eggman, the three aliens decide to combine their powers and destroy all the little robots that try to attack them in order to get closer to their main target. While Sonic lures his archenemy into the forest, Tails and Knuckles fly to the robot's head in an attempt to find a way to disable it. During his escape, the hedgehog is almost knocked out by the laser beams, but narrowly manages to dodge the attacks. However, when he is crossing a bridge, he ends up being hit and is buried in the rubble after suffering a huge fall. At this point, Tails manages to break into the robot's carcass and uses his clones to try to confuse Robotnik, but ends up being hit by his laser beams. However, just as the villain was about to eliminate him, he realizes that the fox was just a distraction, as Knuckles is ready to hit him with his punch, causing the emerald to be expelled from Eggman's body. When this happens, the Supreme Robot is deactivated and falls into the ashes of the forest. Seeing the jewel a few meters away, Sonic tries to reach it, but he is seriously injured after the fall and can barely walk. Meanwhile, Robotnik manages to restart the robot and is about to crush the hedgehog when Maddie and Tom manage to rescue him. To prevent the trio from escaping, the villain strikes the ground and causes an earthquake, causing the truck therein to overturn. At this point, the Master Emerald becomes Sonic's only hope, but suddenly the stone begins to lose its shine and crumbles in the hedgehog's hands. After surrounding his victims in a circle of fire, Robotnik prepares to trample them underfoot. Just then, the 7 Chaos Emeralds fuse to the hedgehog's body and he gains the power he needs to protect his family. After piercing the robot's foot with his body, Sonic rips the machine's head off and Robotnik decides to go for it in one last attack. In an attempt to eliminate his opponent, who is now more powerful than ever, the man tries to hit him with a punch, but Sonic manages to parry the attack and destroy the robot's fist. The hedgehog then uses his own body as a projectile to destroy the machine and, once again, Robotnik is defeated. After completing his mission, Sonic uses the power of the emerald to materialize a hot dog and then removes the jewels from his body. Relieved to have their hedgehog back, Maddie and Tom run to hug him and invite Tails to join their family. After smelting the 7 stones, Knuckles finally manages to take possession of the Master Emerald, but decides to give it up. From now on, the Echidna no longer wants to give way to his desire for revenge. His real goal is to stand by his new friends so that, together, they can use their powers to protect the universe. That day, Knuckles and Tails become the new members of the Wachowski family and learn to have fun with humans. After taking part in a baseball game, the family decides to go for ice cream and Sonic takes the Master Emerald with them in the car. Meanwhile, in the Green Hills forest, the commander and his agents continue their search for Robotnik, who disappeared after the battle with the hedgehog. Believing that no one would ever survive that fall, Walters comes to the conclusion that Dr. Eggman is eliminated and is told about a file that was lost in the FBI system more than 50 years ago. In this file are the coordinates for a secret research facility where the Shadow Project experiments are carried out. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.